Hey everyone, I'm Mike from theparkprodigy.com, and on today's video, we're going to break down some of the best tips and tricks for visiting Universal Orlando during the slower times of year. And if you've been watching our channel, we just created a video about visiting Universal during the busier times of year. But of course, every family will visit during a different time of year, and there are different strategies based on the time of year that you're visiting. So if you are in the process of planning a Universal Orlando trip and you do think you're planning, to go during what is considered the slower times of year, you're going to want to be sure to stick around till the end of this video. I really, really hope that you do find this video helpful, and I am excited, so let's go get started. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. Like I said, we are about to break down some of the best Universal Orlando tips and tricks for visiting during some of the slower times of year. Now, as a general rule of thumb, the slower times of year will typically be January, February, the beginning of May, end of August, all of September, and then, some weeks in October. The end of October to, of course, January 1st is going to be pretty busy in the theme parks, and then spring break, summer breaks, right? Those are typically considered the busier times of year. So if you're visiting around, the slower times of year, this is the video for you. These are some of the best tips and tricks to help get the most out of your Universal Orlando vacation. All right, so starting with the first tip and trick, and you're going to see we kind of recommend this no matter what time of year you're visiting, but it's still a very, very important one, and we felt like it was the best place to start, and that is make a park plan, come up with a game plan. And this is just super, super important no matter what time of year you're visiting, even if it's during some of the slower times a year, because you still want to have, an idea of which rides you want to go on. Not only that, because it's going to be, lower wait times, you might be, with the right plan, you'll get so much more done because you're just going to pretty much run through every single one of these rides, right? So this is always the most important thing, no matter what time of year you're visiting, but specifically, we just wanted to make sure to keep it on the list if you're visiting during some of the slower times of year. And this brings us to our next tip and trick, and that is once you decide which rides you want to go on, you can then make that best decision about the Universal Express Pass. And again, if you watched the video on the best tips and tricks for visiting during some of the busier times of year, we did say that if you plan to go on to every single ride, that you might need the Universal Express Pass. But when it's the slower times of year, you'll see just having that game plan and having the ride list really will help you determine, like, hey, we only want to go on, 15 rides, right? And we have 2 days. So that's 7.5 rides per day. If you talk to us, if you call the Park Prodigy and you're like, hey, Mike, should we get the Express Pass? And we can look at your ride list, we can tell you, no, you don't need the Express Pass, especially if you're taking advantage of early park admission. On the flip side, depending on which slower time of year you might be going, you might need the Express Pass, or it might just be the best fit for you based on what you're trying to get out of your park plan, right? If you're trying to spend more afternoons back at the hotels, relaxing at the pools, then yeah, you might need the Universal Express Pass, or it might be the right fit for you. Moving over to the next tip and trick, and because you're visiting during some of the slower times of year and you'll be getting on the rides quicker, we would say don't forget to take your time and explore the themed lands. Now, this is especially true for both of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter parks. We have Hogsmeade over at Islands of Adventure, and then of course we have Diagon Alley over at Universal Studios Florida, and then of course we do have the Jurassic Park area over at Islands of Adventure. But the cool thing about visiting when there's not a lot of people, especially if you are a huge Harry Potter fan, and let's say you and the kids are going to do the interactive wands, is you'll really get that much more out of the areas because they're less crowded. You'll just be able to enjoy them so much more. So we would say, plan that into your day as well as you are creating that park plan, which I keep talking about. Okay, over to the next one, and that would be, don't forget that Universal has a ton of amazing characters for you to interact with, take pictures, right? And again, because you're visiting during some of the slower times of the year, you will have more time to do things like this. You will have more times to explore, and you definitely have more times to go and interact with your favorite Universal Orlando characters. Okay, and so this next one has to do with really picking the best fit ticket for you. And then, of course, we keep saying it, but if you are not going to feel rushed, and if you will get more out of your day, right, you could potentially just do one park per day. So you don't have to upgrade to the park-to-park ticket. Now, of course, it's important for us to mention that if you do plan to ride the Hogwarts Express, you do need to upgrade to the park-to-park ticket. But on the flip side, ticket prices will be cheaper if you plan to visit during the slower times of year. So you'll get a better deal. So it might be a little bit more affordable to upgrade to the park ticket. So keep that in mind as well. And, we always recommend to look at all your options, shop around, make sure you find the best fit ticket for you. And again, you might be surprised that you'll get a better deal if visiting during some of the slower times of year. And then again, keeping with the tickets for a little bit, don't forget about Volcano Bay. And we did a video a couple months back on the best time to visit Universal Orlando. And in that video, we actually suggested that, some of the best times to visit Volcano Bay are during the slower times of year. Now, you really have to time this right. Realistically, you do have to plan, I would say, to go around the end of August, in September, to really still have that Florida weather where Volcano Bay is enjoyable. And I mean, I know it's different for everyone. One of the crazy things that I learned while working for Disney, and I sold tickets at Disney, at the Magic Kingdom Park, and we would have families, coming in December and January, and they would be buying water park tickets, and it would be like 65, 70 degrees outside, and I would be sitting there in a jacket. But of course, if you're coming in from the colder parts of the world, you might be cool with that, and so more power to you, go for it. But what we also find is, again, just in general, Volcano Bay is so much more enjoyable during those slower times of year. In the summer, I'm talking about like the heart of the summer, there are certain days where Volcano Bay will reach capacity, meaning even if you have a ticket, you cannot get in. So if you visit during some of the slower times of year, you don't run that risk. And again, it's just that much more enjoyable. Okay, and so then on to the next tip and trick, and this is kind of sticking with the weather, right? If you are planning to visit during, let's say, January or February, which are the other couple slower times of year in the theme parks, you have to plan accordingly, specifically from a clothing standpoint, right? Because Florida weather can be extremely unpredictable. It's extremely unpredictable in the summer with the rain, but then more so in December, January, February, you really don't know what you're going to get. So you do have to keep a close eye on the weather forecast and plan accordingly. I do this for a living. There are some trips when half of my suitcase is shorts and t-shirts, the other half is sweatpants and sweatshirts, right? So it could be really, really frustrating because you don't know what to pack. You might have to pack a little bit more just to be as prepared as possible. But I would say January, February, definitely bring a sweatshirt. You're almost positively going to need it at night. Okay, and so we are about more than halfway through this video, and I just wanted to take a quick second to say thank you all again so much for checking this video out. And if you are finding this video helpful until this point, just be sure to subscribe to our channel, as we do have a lot more similar videos coming out in the coming weeks to make sure you are as prepared as possible for your next Universal Orlando vacation. But let's jump back to the list. And another really, really important tip and trick is to make sure you check the park hours. Now, you'll see that during some of these slower times of year, Universal will close early. And from a theme park standpoint, they'll close around 6, 7, or 8 o'clock at night on certain nights. Now, this is really, really important to keep in mind as you're planning your days, because if you're not staying in the theme parks till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you definitely might want to take advantage of early park admission in the morning, or just make sure that you get a really, really early start to your day to just make sure that you get that much more out of your day. And of course, I've said this before, but we also feel like, you're not getting, you're not staying in the parks till 11 o'clock at night, but of course, because there are less people, you're still getting more done within your time in the park. So we do think it is kind of still, a win-win. And then taking it one step further to the next tip and trick, knowing that and knowing the park hours, we would say make sure that you plan around that at night, specifically over at City Walk. So if you know that, you're only going to be in the parks until 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, you can plan to go see a movie over at City Walk, or you can plan, definitely plan for dinner reservations. They have mini golf. There's, a bunch of stores and shops to go and check out. So keep that in mind as you're planning your trips, because you'll want things to do at night, especially once the parks close. Okay, so this next one might be the most important one on the list, and that is make sure you check for ride refurbishments. Now, and of course, if you're visiting in the off season, you want to be as prepared as possible, and that includes ride refurbishments, and that also goes back to our park planning, right? Because you don't want to have a ride on your park plan that is not open. So of course, just like anything in life, it makes the most sense that if Universal is going to close some of their rides to refurbish them, they're going to want to do it during the slower times of year, right? So that's why we always suggest to make sure you're up to date on the ride refurbishments. And it's typically what we also will see is like during January and February, that's when Universal will do the most improvements on the water rides, stuff like that. So just keep that in mind and plan around it. Okay, and so moving on to the last tip and trick, and we would say don't forget to look at all your options when planning your vacation, specifically from a deal standpoint. Now, again, one of the biggest benefits of visiting during the slower times of the year is you are more than likely to get a great deal. And this might allow you, like I said, to upgrade to the park to park ticket for, a little bit more affordable price, but also consider staying at a Universal Orlando hotel. And even if you want to stay at a Universal Orlando hotel, look at all your options. Look at the vacation package deals that they're running. You can always call us at the Park Prodigy to see if they have, any promotions on vacation packages. But what this will allow you to do is just like it sounds. Of course, you'll get the best deal and you'll be able to save as much as possible, but maybe you get to upgrade to a better hotel, for a similar price that you would have paid for a value hotel during the busier times of year, right? So it always pays to look at all your options, to take full advantage of visiting Universal Orlando during some of the slower times of year. But that is the list, everyone. Those are some of the best tips and tricks for visiting Universal during these slower times of year. I really, really hope that you found this video helpful. If I missed anything, if you have picked up some tips and tricks from visiting, during any of the times that I said in this video, just be sure to leave them in the comment section to help everyone else who's watching this video out. And of course, we will have more videos just like this coming out in the coming weeks. Thank you all again so much for checking out this video. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.